So we'd come across this business that we were really curious about. It ticked a lot of the boxes we were usually looking for, had a solid brand, it was profitable, it had been going for almost 30 years, and it didn't have any of those urgent, this will need fixing, this will be a leak. And so we reached out to the individual and we organised a quick phone call just to have a chat, basically. We had this 30-minute phone call. He was a real nice guy. A lot of the things that we discussed, absolutely tick that box, tick that box, tick that box. So we agreed to go on to the next step, which for us is going out for lunch. So we went out for lunch and we sat down with this guy. Now, this is a salt of the earth, real nice guy, real British mentality with it. He'd started the business from scratch 30 years ago, straight out of school. And you could feel this pride and enthusiasm that was just running out of him. He loved the company. He loved the industry. He loved everything about it. But he'd got to that age where actually he didn't want to be doing it every day. And he thought handing it over to someone else, a bit younger blood, a bit more enthusiasm, would do nothing but see the company grow. They're brilliant people to work with who have that mentality. However, as we got a bit further through the conversation, it became apparent that it just wasn't going to be a good fit, predominantly because he was still working in it full time with his wife, with his daughter. And so we were going to have to replace these three really key players. And there are ways around it that we could have done it. But for the money he wanted and the time frame he was looking for, it just wasn't going to work for us. And we were really, really open and honest about this with him. And we finished off the lunch, shook hands, had a great time, and agreed to keep in touch in the future because things always change. However, a few days later, he reached out to me and he said, I was out of the blue. He hadn't really been thinking about selling the business that seriously. However, I had changed his mind on it, and therefore he was going to take it to an open market. And could I put together a valuation just so he has a comparison? Absolutely. I'm always happy to do this sort of thing because you never know where it's going to lead. So I put this valuation together based on the information I had available to me, but I encouraged him to go and get a bit more of a solid valuation and speak to an accountant, a broker, someone who can look into the business in a bit more detail. And I sent him over this valuation, back of a beer mat sort of valuation, gave him a range, and he was really, really happy. Then a week later, he messaged me again and he said he's been discussing it with his wife, and if I was willing to offer that, then they were willing to accept it, and we had a deal. This kind of caught me off guard, and I had to say to him, I've given you a valuation range. I haven't actually made an offer on the business. I'm just trying to be helpful here. And he went, no, I understand that, but you clearly think that's what it's worth and we'd like to accept that. And it put me in this really awkward position because I had to say no again. And I clearly hadn't been clear enough the first time, or he wouldn't have come back to me. But the truth is that the reason he came back to me and was happy to accept an offer that I never made wasn't because of the numbers at all. It was about the way we presented ourselves and the ownership and the trust that he had, and the fact that we were going to help build this business more when he left, which is always what we want to do. One of the big values we have when buying businesses is that longevity of the brand and the name, and we want to make sure that their legacy is kept going throughout the whole of it. We're never looking to come in and strip these companies apart. We're looking to work with the current team, maybe put in a new member of staff or two, but we really want to build them and grow them. And people think the valuation is fundamentally the numbers. You get this EBITDA thrown around and multiples and add this back and add that back and do this and do that. But fundamentally, if you're looking from the numbers perspective, it's not about multiples or this or that or the other. It's about the affordability of the business. I was talking to someone else a few days ago, and the multiples that they were putting on the business, it would have taken us 16 years. That's 16 years of giving them profit every single year to pay that off. And that's just unrealistic. So when you get these individuals come back to you and say, if that's the number you're willing to pay, then we're happy to take that deal, without an offer being made, you realize that how emotional this is for them. And this is something we always try and do. We always talk about the financials secondary. What we're looking for initially when we buy businesses is, can we work with this person a long time? Are we going to be able to help them continue this legacy, whether they want to stay in the business or exit? We're doing a deal at the moment where it's really important to this guy that we keep his legacy going. And he's in his 80s, but he doesn't want to step away from the business. So we're keeping him in there. We're giving him a role so he can continue working day to day and look after some of those major clients who've been with him for decades. And the harsh truth of the matter is that most owners don't know what they're actually selling. Most owners will think they're selling the business, the nuts and bolts, the widgets, the things. But what they're really selling is the brand, the identity, the habits, the relationships, the systems that are in place. So when they want to talk numbers and we don't, they're often unprepared for that conversation, because we try and bring it down to an emotional perspective to go, well, what do you want to see in a buyer? Because we can come in and we can buy the business, we can strip it apart and increase profits and do all this, that, and the other. But that's then going to become an issue of the brand, and your customers are really going to feel that. And so we're always prepared to sit down with people looking to sell businesses and have a conversation with them, because we want to be honest and clear with these individuals. And if we can help them get a bigger number in 3 years' time, then I'm always happy to do that. We've just finished 2 years working with a company, and we were preparing their business for sale, and they've signed heads of terms just a few days ago. And we're always happy to do that because we want the best for these individuals. And I truly believe that if I help you, that will come back to me in some way, shape, or form. So for anyone looking to sell their business or get in touch, the biggest takeaway I can give you isn't about trying to be a hard negotiator or have the highest valuation. It's about being really understanding in what you actually have that's available for other people to buy. Because when you know who you are and really what business you're in and who you're selling to and why, you can operate on a different level, and that will give you an edge that will really help build the trust with the individuals. And so if we go back to the original case, I didn't say no just to close the door on this guy. I said no to be really honest with him about where we're coming from and the perspective we take. And what I'm hoping is that will build that relationship a lot longer term. And if we do end up buying that business in the future, great. If we can help him get a higher exit and that business is better suited for someone else, that is also perfect for us. Because if nothing else happens, what we want to do is add value to every conversation that we have. So if you're navigating these kind of relationships, whether you're buying, selling, or just thinking about what's next for your company, keep tuning in. Build What Lasts is where we unpack the real stuff behind the spreadsheets. And if today's story hit home for you, share it with a fellow operator or founder, or better yet, sit down with someone and ask them, what do you really think the business is worth and why? You'll learn a lot more from that conversation than the numbers. And I'll see you on the next one.